Time now for KJ and Dondero with KJ Carson and Mark Dondero on WEEI. WEEI.
And streaming everywhere on the Odyssey app.
Winning run at second base, tying run at third. Here's the 2-0 to Alex Verdugo. And he swings at lines one right center, fielding is down for a base hit. Here comes the tying run. Here's the throw to the plate. It's offline. The Red Sox win it. Jeter down scores the winning run. Alex Verdugo with a 2-run, 2-out single in the bottom half of the 10th inning sends the Red Sox to an exhilarating 6-5 win over the New York Yankees. Verdugo ties it in the 8th, wins it in the 10th, 6-5 Red Sox.
Good Sunday morning, and thank you for starting your day with KJ and Dondero here on WEEI. And also thank you for listening on your smart speaker. Just say, hey, Alexa, play WEEI 93.7. Mark, what a finish last night. Red Sox can now potentially save the series against the Yankees, and they're only 15 back in the American League East.
KJ, what's up, man? Great
man.
Win last night. Great night, great game. Yeah, that'd be nice considering what are they against? What are they in series against AL East teams? 0-9 this year. 0-10,
yeah, something like that.
So if they could find a way to salvage the series, especially after the way the first two games went, that'd be great. And it was great last night. You'd like to think they'd carry that momentum into tonight. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm obviously the division race is over. I'm not even thinking about that. We'll do that for a long time. But you got to keep it going, and it would obviously help to beat the Yankees in some spots. Just don't get dominated, even though the race is over. You're trying to get into the playoffs. You're trying to maintain that position in the wild card, stay in second place, whatever. Beat the Yankees. Please just don't be dominated by the Yankees, and that was a nice response last night.
Well, last night was very key, and it had some undertones with Derek Jeter giving the infamous text to Jeter Downs before his first game a couple weeks ago saying, look, do well except for against the Yankees. He gets his first hit last night against the Yankees. He scores 2 runs last night. He scores the winning run last night. So there's that little undertone there. But I've always been on this kind of boat, if you will, about how this could potentially play out. I think I've said it over the last couple of weeks, is that the Red Sox could be in a position to, hey, you can lose by 15. It doesn't matter. But if you beat the Yankees in a 4-game series in the playoffs, everything you're seeing right now doesn't matter at all. Here's the equivalence to it. You play Madden, or you play like what sports game do you like to play? Video game, Mark?
I don't play video games.
Oh my goodness, brother! No video games.
Hey, I used to play. Music. You know what I used to play, and then I stopped playing NCAA football. That's the game I used to play.
Okay, so imagine you're playing a buddy who's just really good at the game, and he just gets off of beating you and beating you and beating you. But you beat him once, maybe you beat him a couple of times. Now it's like a shoe is in his pebble's in his shoes. Like, man, let's play again. Yeah. That's what the Red Sox have to be, right? Like winning last night prevent it. Like, okay, they've already lost the series. Does the Sunday night game mean anything? Becomes a whole lot of junk talking with a controller in your hand. But now by winning last night, it's this little pebble in the shoe, because all the talk about was like how strong the Yankee bullpen is. They're lights out once it's the 7th inning, and all that went out the window just for one game. And that's the little window I want to see from the Red Sox when they're up against the Yankees, and of course with Tampa and with Toronto in this kind of dogfight, really Tampa and Toronto dogfight they've got going on, is when come playoff time that they can put 4 pebbles in shoes and steal a series and make a whole season worthless for the Yankees. It would be golden.
Yeah, that'd be great. We're not there yet. But again, this team doesn't really have to worry about the Yankees, as good as they are. They have to worry about what they're doing. They have to worry about getting themselves right, getting themselves on track, and continuing to play well and build towards, playing their best baseball down the stretch, which, by the way, they did last year. Now, I understand it was a little bit of a roller coaster. They were hot, then they really had those issues around the trade deadline, and then they kind of bounced back. That's what needs to happen, and there's no reason to think that won't happen, because based on what I've heard in and around this city, okay, by and large, Chaim Bloom gets criticized. Now, I don't know what everybody's overwhelming thoughts are on the man, but he gets criticized and they haven't done enough and this, that, and that. Right. I don't see it that way. I think, despite the fact he hasn't made big, splashy, flashy moves, I think the guy has the Red Sox and keeps the Red Sox in a position to compete. And until I see otherwise, or I really see them, spiral out of control, I am not going to lose faith in what this guy's process is.
Are the Red Sox designed to compete or to win? You make it compete, if you haven't won a World Series in 20 years, right? Like once the jinx was up, it's now like, okay, the Red Sox need to be right there all the time, as many times. Because remember, 2020 is not that long ago, and that was a horrible season. So you don't want to build off of that. You want to say that should be further in the back window than, okay, just putting together. I'm from the camp of like, look, you can't do Tampa dinner prices in the Seaport. That might get you an appetizer. You have to be able, I'm not saying spending everything is the answer, but you can't say, hey, for a historic franchise that's always in the mix, that's recently won World Series, multiple ones, nobody wants to hear about how exciting the farm team is. That doesn't matter. The farm team should be to accent the team, not to be, hey, it's going to be the future. No, there's a now of the team. And that's why I think when it comes to Heim, people have the problem with, okay, Devers isn't re-signed. Bogey's in limbo, is in limbo. It's you can do that in these smaller places where if you're Pittsburgh and the guy's too good for the payroll. That's not the case here, and that's where some of the issues, and it feels like last year is repeating it. We'll talk about it here shortly. It's KJ and Dondero, 617-779-7937. Text line 37937. But the week started weird for the Red Sox. Remember when Chris Sale had the tantrum in Worcester? You want to play that for us, Nick?
Well, I did see the video. I have not talked to anybody, including Chris, about that. But I did see the video. And look, I'm not going to sit here and condone property damage. But look, he is a competitor. That's who he is. And there's plenty of guys, including somebody that we all love who's going into Cooperstown later this month, who have been caught on tape doing stuff like that when they're frustrated during a ball game. It happens. It probably happens more than people think, and with guys that you might never suspect. So it's never something that we condone, but there's a lot of passion in this game. And when you have someone who holds himself to as high a standard as Chris does and who cares as much as he does, sometimes that passion is going to express itself in different ways.
Yeah, that's Heim Bloom on Chris Sale's outburst in Worcester, which, Mark, look, I totally understand the argument of, okay, look, passion and showing it and so forth. I think there are right places and there are wrong places. If you're at Worcester, those guys probably should be smashing TVs over like, can I pay my rent? I'm hungry. I'm not making any money here. I would understand. But you're the $30 million guy smashing stuff, and they're kind of like, really? This guy's got problems? I had to ride here with you today because I have no gas money. So that's the only issue I would have with it is if he did this in the Red Sox locker room or a Red Sox clubhouse, I wouldn't have an issue with it. It's just at Worcester, and you're the $30 million guy. Show that you've been here before.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that whatsoever. I think that was psychotic behavior.
Psychotic, that's strong.
Well, fine. But, have some control of your emotions.
Yeah.
There's no reason to act like that. He's a competitor. That means nothing to me. You can be a competitor and not act like a lunatic.
You've seen it happen in major league clubhouses. My problem is, why are you doing that in Worcester? Why there, right? Punch up, punch your weight, do it in the major league clubhouse. It makes sense. You're frustrated. It's good. But when you're doing it at the minor league field and, kids and families are just kind of hanging out and they can see better. You think about it. The video that you saw, you're not going to be that close to be able to zoom in and see that from a seat at Fenway, but you're in Worcester, man, you can see it as clear as day, it's right there.
Look, the bottom line is Chris Sale has been a disappointment for the Red Sox. Has it been a disaster? I went back and forth on this. No, it hasn't been a disaster.
Right.
His stats are there. He's had, when he's been playing, usually earlier in the season, not so much later in the season, he's performed well. But when I think of, forget about what he's making in terms of the money. When I think of the ace of the Boston Red Sox, okay, I think of the big names. Pedro. I think of, when we're talking about Pedro, I think of 99. Forget about the All-Star game. How about what he did in the ALCS and in the division round against the Indians and those big moments in the playoffs, World Series against the Cardinals. I think of Josh Beckett and the Indians in 2007 and those big playoff moments. I think of John Lester in the playoffs. Biggest moments, biggest games coming through. I even think of, I can't believe I'm going to say this, David Price And what he did in 2018 before...
What's wrong with David Price?
Look, ultimately,
right.
It was painful. He couldn't do a thing. When it came to big moments, he was terrible until he wasn't. And even he had his signature moment. Now, it's not too late for Chris Sale, but to this point, when you're talking about the ace, the only thing I have is he limped into the final inning or final out or whatever of the World Series in 2018. And that's a nice image for him to have, striking out Machado or whatever to seal the deal. But he didn't have a huge impact on that series. That was David Price's playoff run. Chris Sale needs to be bigger and better for the Red Sox to justify his presence here and that contract, and he hasn't been that. And to this point, it has been a disappointment. He's got pressure. He's putting pressure on himself to, I guess, rectify that. And maybe that's why he's breaking TVs. I just, you don't need to break TVs,
right. If you got a rib like if you're out with a rib injury and we see you yanking down televisions, first thing I'm thinking is do you even care about why we've been told you're out? Not saying that you're not injured. It's just kind of that's going to require what you've hurt. It would be let's just say you broke your finger or something like that. I don't want to see you punching walls if you have if you've sprained your wrist.
Look, he didn't get hurt. I mean, he's been hurt. He got it when he was out earlier in the year. How did he sustain that injury? Do you remember?
No.
It was like throwing a bullpen. It's not like there was some physical, some collision. It was just throwing. And then ultimately he was out for a long time.
That's right. I
mean, the guy is brittle, and that's fine. He's got a skinny frame, whatever. I appreciate that he owned it. He said the way he talks, he's different than David Price. David Price had an I don't give an F what you think demeanor. He was totally a turnoff when you looked at him and the body language and everything about the way he looked and presented himself was a turnoff. Chris Sale is not that way. So that's why I think in part we give him passes. But ultimately, the guy has not gotten it done to the level that we all hoped when they signed him, when they brought him here.
KJ and Dondero on WEEI, 617-779-7937. Joining the conversation on the text line as well, 37937. And, of course, on your smart speaker, say, hey, Alexa, play WEEI 93.7. That'll get you right here as well. Real quick about Chris Sale, and then we'll talk about what Chaim Bloom may have to do here in a couple of minutes. I think the whole idea about Chris Sale when he came into the league is this guy can be the next Randy Johnson. But a lot of people forget the Montreal Expos Randy Johnson, right, where the guy kind of knew how to pitch already, but could throw some heat. And I think with Chris Sale, he came in just throwing heat. And if you're that body type and that framing, you're just heat. And then when you break down, there's not a lot of muscle mass to redevelop yourself, right? So Chris Sale could pretty much only come back as a crafty guy. And I don't know if craftiness is what you need at the front of the starting lineup, the rotation. Sorry, I haven't eaten breakfast yet.
It's all right.
So I don't. Again, there might be some chances to miss fastballs later in the game, but I just don't see. I just don't see Chris Sale coming back as a starter, and I know that is top of mind for him. And even though we're not talking about the money, his money is the watermark for the other players who are negotiating now, in Xander and in Raffy Bogarts. So they're like, this guy gets 30 and he's not here.
Well, it sounds like Alex Cora wants him to start. And it really, to me, it doesn't matter. As long as he's producing, starter, bullpen, relief, middle relief, I don't care. Just produce. Stay in the lineup and produce. Whatever your role becomes when you get back, produce.
Yeah, but that'd be some growing pains trying to figure that out. I mean, he gets a start Tuesday in Tampa. And so if he gets knocked after 3, do you immediately start saying, hey, we may need to look to move you into a bullpen, or do you give it another shot? I mean, that's what the Yankees have in this 15-game lead. You have a little bit of flexibility. But, there might be about 3 or 4 test games before you finally find out what his real role should be. Sure. And do you want to do that with that guy?
I mean, you got to do what you got to do to get him productive. Yeah, you got to get him going. You need the help. You need the depth. You need his skill set. If that's what it takes, that's what it takes.
I say bullpen right away, because if you don't like what you see early, you can yank him. There's other people who are right there.
I agree. That's what I've been saying for months. I think he hasn't. I think he needs to prove that he can not only stay healthy, but stay in a role and perform in that role. Yeah. And I think he needs to start in a smaller way, in a smaller sample size, in a place like the bullpen, and then probably not this year, but then you can maybe evolve back into being a starter. But, he hasn't proven recently that he can sustain productivity as a starter. And I need productivity.
KJ and Dondero, WEEI, thank you so much for hanging out. 617-779-7937. Next, does High make moves at the All-Star break? Get some players, some arms in here. Talk about that next. But right now, it's time to trend with Nick.